Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Refresh Point. My name's Ben. I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Steve.
How is everybody doing?
This guy just had a day.
It's been a fantastic day.
It's been an amazing day. You know what? It's an amazing day because Kaguya is out. And you can build it now and play it in English.
Yeah.
This guy's just shaking his head over here. Welcome back to the Refresh Point. It's Weiss podcast about just about anything Weiss. The meta, deck builds, collector's items, and so much more. For our second episode, it turns out there's still plenty to discuss in the realm of Weiss Schwarz. Surprise, surprise. Springfest team regionals are fast approaching, and we've been prepping just like anybody else. Steve has been hunting down Kaguya foils like many a whale in the sea, and while I've been revisiting my defense stat in an effort to combat the rising presence of Escanor. So shuffle your decks, tap or cut, and let's get into the refresh point. Starting off with Boffery's Soul Wall, or how I learned to stop worrying and max out my defense stat after maxing out my attack stat.
So we're going to introduce a new segment that's going to be recurring, and I'm sure that it will become a popular segment. And we've decided to call it Ambitious Deck Building.
It's time for some ambitious deck building.
That's right. And so Ben is going to guide us through some ambitious decks that he has constructed and tested in our local environment, while I use the Socratic method to slowly but surely poke it apart.
Yeah. What tends to happen is I'll latch onto some mechanic or something, and I'm like, I want to make this thing work. Surely there's a way.
And I think that
surely there's a way.
Yeah, and one of the things that makes you do that is trying to respond to the meta.
Yeah.
We know all the knowns we're familiar with, all the familiar faces. But in pursuit of defeating those familiar faces, we'll sometimes look into the darkness.
The darkness, yeah.
In search of some new tools.
Yeah.
Perhaps that we left behind.
Well, Boffery is not the darkness. It's light, it's fun, it's cute, it's happy, it's just cute girls doing cute things. Like bashing your face in with a hammer. So that's what we've got in store.
All right, so we're gonna talk about Boffery, but what's the value here? Okay. What are we bringing it? What are we bringing it out to do?
All right. So here's the thing. Really, I didn't expect. That's the thing about it. I didn't expect this to be good, at all. Like anywhere near playable. Really, I just was like, okay, I want to. Previously, I and Soul Wall decks have had a tenuous relationship. I don't like playing Soul Wall. I previously just did not like playing Soul Wall. It didn't jive with the way I wanted to play as a player. I wanted to kill you dead.
Sure.
And Soul Wall, not really a great vehicle for killing the enemy dead. But I wanted to become a more flexible player, and I didn't want to play Sora, because I saw Wu play Sora, and it was soul crushing whenever I played it against him and others, and I was like, I just don't enjoy playing this even more than I already hate Soul Wall.
That's interesting.
And so I was like, well, Boffery has a Soul Wall deck. That's funny. It's a good meme. And I just want to try it, just for fun. And so it has a few things about it.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the advantages. What are we bringing to the table here?
The draw of the Boffery Soul Wall is that it doesn't choose, right? It's -2 soul to the character in front.
Right.
You can early play it. It's a 2 or less early play, which sucks completely. But it comes with this neat little 2/1 Kanade, my boy. Guy with a hat, guy with the spells, gives hexproof to our Soul Wall here, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that's a big deal for defensive games.
And it has an effect where you can rest him, discard 2 cards, and just as somebody else in the area said, just Xerox copy another soul wall from your waiting room onto the board for no other cost. And so if you walk into your level 2 turn, having just refreshed your deck, and you have your hexproof and even 2 healers in hand, and you just play 1, you can even just say, I'm not going to pay the stock for this. I'm going to discard the other healer in my hand and some dude. And now it's on the field.
I think that if you're going to play defensive end games, one of the requirements for those sort of decks is a way to get them out early, and they need to be multiples. Multiples is required. Right. So so we have a way to get it early. We have a way to get multiples, and we have a way to guard it from some of the more nasty ways that early plays leave the board, because It dodges downgrade. It dodges Nanashi, Card Titan. Yes.
Like on the play. Obviously, you're always gonna get got by bombs, and that's life.
And also, it was resistant to anti-early counter.
Yeah, anti-early counters. And funnily enough, when I was playing it against my roommate, who owns Hololive and plays it, it also is a very funny counter into Sora, because Sora chooses for its soul down, whereas Beaufry does not.
It's just...
So you get to soul down them.
They don't get to soul down you.
You don't even get to soul down you, and you get punches. And that's the thing about the deck, is that it demands for a lot of resources.
Yes, it sounds like we need a lot of hand, and we need a lot of money.
Yes.
How are we going to generate those resources, just out of curiosity?
Well, I tried a few things. So the original... Like, the full flavorful one is there is a level 1 choice combo where you can resonate this soul down combo to give the 1-0 power up to 10k if you have 4 copies of the healer in your hand. Now, the problem with this is that you are breaking yourself to high heavens in order to hope that your 1-0 lives, and if you don't get to 4, most of the time in this modern day and age, 8-5 is killable.
It is.
We can beat over 8-5. And
depending on the deck, for sure. Yeah.
And whenever you beat the 8-5 and now you have a hand of 3 early play healers that are just not viable to play, and like maybe 1 or 2 other just crap cards, it's not great.
Yeah, that seems like a very high-risk maneuver that if it fails, it will fail spectacularly.
It tends to do so. So, we moved on. But, in the face of Escanor, who likes to bounce and who likes to have souls, I like the idea of a hexproof soul down on the board.
I think that that's one of those things that deck does not want to see, does not want to face. There are very few really good tools that work well against that deck, and that's one of them. So, what are our other combo advantage engines that we can use here?
All right, so there is, to get the other ones out of the way, there is a bar combo, which just generates hand, doesn't generate you money. You're going to be poor for the rest of the game. Not great. Same thing with a book combo, which is basically the Goblin Slayer 1 combo, but instead of getting torch, you get camera. And so
what do I get with camera?
The pieces. You get the healer, you get the 2-1, and...
Well, what does camera do?
Well, it checks for top 4 of your deck adds a character.
Okay.
And so you can get it. It's on a book.
That sounds fairly reasonable.
It's fairly reasonable. I haven't tried it. But at the same time, again, doesn't generate you money inherently. And I don't know about like the value of camera, I guess.
It's another piece to juggle, but it does give you some decent opportunities at deck speed, which, I mean, that's a very important concept in a modern Weiss deck, is being able to acknowledge a bad deck state and then wiggle out of it. And if you put a bunch of mill 4s into your hand, your deck state becomes less relevant because you're quickly able to solve it.
And now and I do want to circle back on this combo because I haven't tried it, but I think it is worth at least a try. Like an honest try.
Can we play it on counterstep like we played?
You cannot play it on counterstep.
That makes it measurably worse.
It is measurably worse.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, right? It's not Torch.
It's Torch at home.
It's Torch at home.
Okay.
Yeah, and the 1-0 like gives power on attack, which is not bad. It's fine. Because with all of these 1 combos that don't generate stock, you want to run a maple that generates stock. If you play Climax, and you reverse something with this maple, you get blind stock. And the spicy part is, at any time, if your opponent is reversed, it goes to memory.
I mean, that getting top stock currency available to you, particularly if you have repeatable, like it works really well with stuff like pants or bar, where you're going to be slamming climaxes repeatedly with some certainty. But I think that mechanic is very, very good.
Yeah.
You know, if you get power on climax and then you get on reverse top stock, that's 2 to 3 extra stock a game, a turn's worth of stock a game potentially, and that's huge.
And especially paired with that book combo, where on attack you can just power it up.
Right.
I think that's probably like the last deck list that I would consider trying with this deck. But like you said, you generally want to play it with something that you're going to keep doing the combo, right? You're going to keep jamming pants, bar, or even book. But this deck really wants to just like go on all cylinders. You want to get your resources, and when you hit 2, you want to jam the soul down immediately and just stick it in their face.
So to me, the combo that would seem the most valuable at doing what this deck seems to want to do is the pants combo.
Right.
Because we get a very normal, reasonable combo. It's a mill 2 and then salvage equal to the combined levels. It's on pants, which means we can play it all the time. It's a deck with a relatively high level structure, more high level cards than low level cards, which will lead to, easier picks. We can pick up anything basically, half a good portion of the time. So why are we not just playing pants?
You're just poor.
You're just poor. This
deck demands stock. It demands a lot of stock.
Is our stock charger blue?
It's blue. It's great. No, I have no issues with the stock charger. The deck just demands more stock. You're just kind of so because of the way it all kind of comes together, your best level assist, because your hexproof doesn't give power, you need an additional level assist.
Okay.
And your additional level assist is going to replace your brainstormer, which means you've lost like milling, you've lost kind of your advantage, or like your selectivity a little bit. And so I've gravitated towards this 2-1 level assist that's pay 2, rest to salvage.
Sure.
And obviously that's just more money.
So what's our stock goals looking like for this deck? Like when we hit level 2,
you want to run into level 2 with like 6+ stock, ideally plus.
Okay.
Right. And so
we want the game to either be very slow, or and we need to be relatively efficient through 0 and 1. Do we have any good zeros that can assist our hand during this process?
There's a Ricky. There's Drop Search. On Death Katsuki. If we want to, we could play Aqua at Home, which is on play, ping 1 top clock, check top 2 for a character add.
Yeah, that's not great.
We can play Aqua at Home. We can play. You can grab your climaxes with Frederica, which is on reverse, check top 3, add a climax you see, and discard.
Sure, yeah, that's a profile we've seen in the past for decks that badly need to make things happen at specific points in the game. On reverse is not ideal, but all right. So, what combo did you decide to go with in order to?
It's Two Soul, of course it's Two Soul. Why wouldn't it be Two Soul? This combo, you just high roll. You just high roll the game away.
Okay.
Heads I win, tails you lose. The idea here is that it generates both hand and stock. You run drop searches and and even like just the level assist. in order to get what you need. And because your 2-1 just copies another hexproofer to the board, you don't necessarily have to have 2 or 3 of them in your hand.
Right.
You just need to have another one in the waiting room so that you can just get on the copy machine and just shove it onto the board.
Okay.
And
what do I get?
Yeah.
What do I get in return for my
your 2 soul?
Yeah, break it down for me. What are my 2 souls buying me?
There is there's 2 of them.
Okay.
Right. The first one, when your opponent levels up, and they both have the same effect.
Right.
The first one is on opponent level up. The second one is on opponent damage cancel in this card's battle.
Got it.
Okay.
So we have a value either way.
We have value either way. Clean stock, character from the waiting room. Check top, character, add to hand. And honestly, the clean stock really has felt like it mattered in the games that I've been playing it with.
I think that it's complicated because if you trigger,
yeah,
then your choice is either pile it in,
yes,
and pay it out later.
Right. But here's the thing. You're paying it out pretty quickly. It's probably gonna be the very next turn to go get your whole soul wall onto the board.
It's a funny set of synergies and possibly anti-synergies.
Yes.
Because canceling at too much probably feels very bad.
Yes, it does.
Because you will quickly tap yourself out of resources, and then you have a problem.
Yeah. So I will admit it's a high roller's high roll deck.
I think that 2 souls almost always becomes a high roll deck of some kind.
But what's been feeling good about it is kind of like, because it's such a high roll deck at every point, even if you poverty, like I've had, plenty of low roll games in the early game where like I can't set up the combos so that I always win, or they just doesn't happen at all, so on and so forth. But
they just take too much damage, like they don't block enough.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, if 2 souls in the deck, there's an X factor where your opponent just eats the damage smile. And if you poverty your way through the early game, manage to Xerox out some soul walls to slow it down a little bit, and trigger a 2 soul, people like eating damage. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's consistent. But it is 2 soul, and that's just kind of all you need sometimes.
I think that when the game was less mature, these decks were much more frightening because there were several tournaments where I would face 8 2 soul decks or TD combo decks. This was obviously much older Weiss, but ultimately it was a deck that you just didn't want to face in a tournament setting because you would constantly be afraid of your deck state wobbling a little bit. Yeah. I mean, it's still like relevant today. There's so many games that I've played this deck, and I'll just be, I'm holding 2 of the level ups and 1 of the cancels in my hand. I look over at my opponent's waiting room. They've done a little milling at 0. There's 5 climaxes that I see out, like 1 in their clog, 4 in their waiting room. They're probably gripping 1 for the 1 combo. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I mean, okay. Deck 1 is a very scary deck. But that's the thing. Yeah. Deck 1 is a very scary deck. Yeah. And the 2 soul is coming in hot. Level, like, turn 2, ideally. Yeah. The thing you want to do, for the most part, is, what is it? Like, maybe they go first, you go first, whatever. And you swing, paradoxically, continuing the anti-synergy of Beaufry as a whole, because it's a very anti-synergistic set. But you want to swing like once or twice, even though you want money, because instead you want them just to sit at 0-4, 0-5. They take a turn. They deal you to like 1-1, 1-2, mill out a few more climaxes, and then you just jam straight into their face. Cancel 2 of the level up ones. If you don't cancel, that means they've leveled up and you've gotten just 2 extra stock.
your 2-hand for the turn, and you're just going.
Well, what I'll say is that when you have 2 souls, you always have an opportunity to just blast your opponent in deck 1. What you hope for is that the game doesn't take a turn on you in deck 2, or take a turn on you where if they have too many levels relative to yours, you can have situations where it's hard to grip the field because your opponent's they're playing level 3s to your level 1s.
But that's the thing. They're not playing level 3s to your level 1s because they probably hit you to 2, and then you slam down a soul wall.
Right.
And that's the ideal game plan for the deck.
So do we have any way to end the game?
We've got 3 Musashis, and they sure are there. We've got 3 Musashis and 4 2-soul climaxes still in the deck.
Okay.
And it just works. Smile.
So I mean, there's a little bit of synergy there between Musashi and 2 souls, but it sounds like a deck that absolutely has the ability to win. And if you get this setup at level 2, then your opponent is going to have a real problem.
It's very annoying.
But it also seems that if you just block 2 or 3 times with your 2-soul climaxes, it's going to be very hard to play the game.
Well, that's the thing. You want to set it up so that you just need to stick 1. Because
I meant drawing it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You see a couple of 2 souls block and you start to sweat a little bit.
No. I don't know. I'm just unlucky. I'm gripping like 3 climaxes, turn 1, turn 2. I'm like, well, all right, we're just gonna game, and that's the life that we're going to live. But yeah, I did win a game where I didn't get the 2-soul climax off. But at that point, I was just canceling with all of it. And instead, I just got to play guys and generate resources by virtue of canceling and just not bleeding.
I mean, there's a lot of ways.
A couple of those.
There's a lot of ways to win a Weiss game.
But I guess kind of just like it is. I think I've wrapped it up. It's a high roll deck. And you do want to be careful with it. Like, into Escanor, actually, you want to save the soul wall, because it is difficult to get climaxes. It's 4 2-soul, 4 choice. Honestly, into Escanor, besides, like, Nanashi and Gowther, and they have to, like, actually get it, you can kind of just push out your board, and then just wait a little bit, and then once they're at 2-4 and 2-5, you jam the soul down climax, send them to 3-3, and you're like, go, good luck. I've got 3 hexproof soul downs. I've got a level assist chilling here. I'm gripping some punches in my hand. Have fun. Good luck.
Well, I think that's definitely, if you can reach that board state and the game is normal or you're ahead, that's fantastic.
And that's the point of it, right? Because with 2-soul and with 2-soul high ruling, you just want to be ahead.
Absolutely.
And that's all there is to it. It's a very honest deck, to be honest. You're just like, did I hit with 2-soul? Did I hit very hard with 2-soul? That's not great for you.
Well, what I will say is it absolutely sounds like a very ambitious deck. And it remains to be seen whether we will be able to translate that into something. But I'm glad that you brought it up so that people who do not want to get hurt and are interested in maxing out their defense, those people will now have a deck to aspire to.
It's fun. I could put the deck list in the description if you're listening to this on YouTube or on Spotify. I'll put the deck code in the description. You can have fun with it. Oh, we didn't even mention there's just a 0 that just says, hey, I'm gonna discard one of these soul walls and just refresh my deck for free.
I mean, that's basically as good as a heal. So.
I mean, like, there have been so many games where it's just like, oh, I hit the salvage? Okay, let me just refresh the deck. I'm at 2. I get out the Soul Wall combo, but I don't really like my deck state. I'm like, well, I've got this level assist that says pay 2 and get a character. I can just go ahead and get my refresher here and refresh with this and move on with my life. It's nasty. I've gotten like a triple block turn refresh into a triple block turn more than a few times.
That's
with this. It's kind of mean.
I'll say that if you have a 2 or fewer climax early play and you are interested in doing that, refreshing the deck is a fast way to get to your early play condition.
Absolutely. And that's our ambitious deck. So, you know, go out, have fun if you would like. You know, you can try some of the other early games of Beaufry. Standby is technically an option. You know, you can try it. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can try it. It might be funny.
What's great about ambitious deck building is that you can try anything that you think is reasonable.
Yeah.
And if you come across something that you think is a winner, you know, in this case, we were examining a specific problem, which is there's this finisher that can just kill you.
Yeah.
And he has the ability to remove your characters. What can we do? And that's how you stumble into stuff like this. So I think
Hexproof Soul Down.
Yeah, I think
what can you say?
I think it's very ambitious, but it's also a deck with a game plan is a very good deck.
Yeah. And you know what? Speaking of decks with game plans, we can move on to a deck with a little bit of a better game plan. Or at least a little bit of a more offensive one. It's the one that just released, actually. It's Kaguya Set 2. Guess who's back? Back again.
Yeah, it looks like we are going back and getting our favorite student council together for another run. So let's talk about Kaguya for a little bit.
Let's talk about Kaguya. You know, we're still gonna run the Set 1 finisher. It's quite nice. Like to see it, you know. Burn 1, hit 3, burn 1 on the reverse, and now we've got this nice new event. I hear it's called Words of Parting, and it has a very nice effect. Can you tell us what it is?
Words of Parting's huge. So it's a 1-cost yellow event that gives one of our characters cannot be chosen by other players' effects, and whenever their damage is canceled, you can mill the top card of your deck and deal damage equal to the level +1. So-called Musashi effect. And that's really important for a character that has a whole bunch of small packets.
Yeah.
You know, Kaguya as a finisher is kind of a bit dated, we'll say.
Yeah.
Kind of like a better Mikasa, where you get 2 instances of 1, but it's easier to pull off, it's cheaper, and you get the door trigger, which is vastly superior to the 2 soul trigger.
Yeah.
So we have a better Mikasa finisher, but ultimately probably lacks the same kind of reach that you'd see from a more modern finisher. You know, if you look at it in the context of some of the most dangerous finishers in English, this is not it in terms of reach. But in terms of reliability, your opponent is 3-0. What are the chances you'll kill them? If you have triple Kaguya, that looks pretty good.
That looks pretty grim for them.
Because
for sure.
you've got 6 1s coming over. And
coming in hot.
It is reverse reliant, so we need reverses.
Yeah.
So our opponent does get some control. You know, if they decide that they want to take their chances by running into your board and leaving some empty lanes, then you have some harder decisions to make because you don't have great off finishing in the set. You have kind of a couple mediocre off finishers, but really what you're counting on is burns. And now burns plus Word of Parting can really turn that 1 damage into something significant, something dangerous, because the deck tends to lean high level. So that event's great.
That event is great. And so is Torch. We were just talking about Cameron. Where's Torch? Torch at home. But hear me out, guys. We can just have Torch.
Yeah, and it looks like most Kaguya decks are going to start tilting towards events.
Lots of them.
Yeah, after set 1, you had some events, and they were fine, but you weren't really an event deck. You know, when we think about events, an event-style deck, like, let's say, Danmachi or something like this.
Right.
A deck with many events that has good event synergy, characters that look for events, characters that react when events are played. The Kaguya Set 2 builds are leaning much more heavily into that. Mm-hmm. They're becoming those style of decks.
You got the Chica Brainstormer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Danmachi, but different.
But better. So arguably, because Chica salvages, whereas Hestia searches.
Right.
And so in most deck states, particularly if you're a Torch enthusiast, you're going to prefer salvaging. Right. You're going to have a greater probability that the thing you want is in the discard pile. So you have
one combo is the same profile as the many Torch the popular Torch combos before. Let's just grab it.
Yeah, and grab it from anywhere, which is great. A little weaker than Bell. Bell is obviously gets ginormous from his combo, from his Power Rider, but Kaguya is much more modest. You do get to beat 2k power on events, so a little more dangerous on the defensive than your opponent would probably like.
And it's on pants.
Yes. So being on pants is massive. You know, it's much better to be on pants than it is to be on anything else.
Easier to loop.
Yep.
You know, and I guess Danmachi also has the same pants and door. It's just switched.
Right.
And I guess it doesn't super matter. Like, you have it, you know. But it's nicer to have pants buried and then just grab the door later if you're stuck in that scenario. Right?
I think in general, after playing some Danmachi, I found I was needing to climax swap all the time because I would frequently be having the pants in my hand and not the door. Whereas I think Kaguya probably has to deal with that a little bit less, just because the pants will
loop into itself.
Right. Exactly. And so I think that they're very reminiscent of each other. They have similar game plans, but they're just a little differences. You know, Danmachi better on offense, Kaguya better on defense, and then the middle game and end game is where things get much different.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you know, we've talked a lot about Torch, and we would be remiss to not touch on the subject of how many cards do you mill when you Torch. And I think probably one of the most popular things I've heard in our area is you just gotta feel it in your jellies.
Yeah. I think that's, you know, it's one of those things.
You just gotta feel it in your bones and just win.
The really great Weiss players, it's well known that the really great Weiss players know exactly how many cards to mill. And they never mill climaxes. They always pick the right number.
Always.
That's what separates the great players from the less great players. But if we could be serious for a moment, how many cards you should mill is a question that gets asked all the time with any milling mechanic. Should I mill? If so, how much?
Right.
Everybody wants to know. New players are always asking, what should we do when we have mill 4? How many should we mill? And the answer is not one anyone wants to hear. The answer is, of course, it depends.
Always.
And for me, in deck 1, I'm much more likely to mill 4. Because deck 1 is the most dangerous deck. It's the deck with the least compression. It's the deck where you have the most things liable to go wrong. You just want that deck to disappear. Yeah. And so milling 4 is a fast way to make it happen.
Absolutely.
So I think if you're in deck 1, you should lean towards milling 4. Unless you really know something about your deck state that...
Like, you know, if you're counting your waiting room and there's like 2 climaxes and there's like 10 cards left in your deck, maybe we don't need them.
Yeah, maybe you just get the first thing you can play.
Yeah.
But ultimately, after deck 1, it becomes a lot more muddy about how many you should mill, because you can easily mill yourself into taking way more damage than you should. Mm-hmm. You can easily mill yourself into
canceling more damage.
Yeah, you can't know. It's a very ugly process. So I think past deck 1, what I would tell players is you need to be okay with whatever you reveal. And so if you have 5 climaxes left, and you start to reveal, and you see 1, and then you see a playable.
That's kind of playable.
If you can't tolerate another one being revealed, then you should stop.
Yep.
But if that playable, if you can't tolerate your hand and consequently the board with the playable you're about to pick up, or non-playable you're about to pick up, as it were, you have to keep going. Because if you don't, you're causing future you problems, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah. And yep, sometimes you'll just lose, and that's just Weiss.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you need to try and not tilt yourself over these type of mechanics. It's something that can easily happen where you want to have future sight, but you just don't. So
now you see, that's why I liked playing the 2 soul buffering deck, because either you canceled and I got advantage, or you didn't cancel and I really got advantage.
Yeah, there are some strategies that are more linear than others.
But jokes aside, yeah, it's just kind of, it loops around like to what I said at the very beginning, and you gotta feel it in your jellies.
Yeah.
You gotta think about it. You feel it in your bones. You're gonna check top. It's a climax. Check second. It's another climax. Check third. It's another climax. And then you'll just cry.
What's great about... Yeah, the 10-mile gaze that I have from that is... You can't hear it.
You can hear it just me laughing. That's all you need.
But what's great about Kaguya Set 2 is that we don't have to run that combo if we feel that our mental cannot tolerate it. We have other 1 combos to choose from now. And so
here's Miko.
Yes, we have Miko. A very normal combo, we'll say. A very Weiss combo where on reverse we get to get a card from the waiting room.
But it's been modern proofed. You can't run, you can't memory, you can't. Can you not bounce too? Is it just everything? Okay.
Cannot change zones.
You cannot move. You're gonna die. I'm gonna get advantage, and you're gonna like it.
And not being able to change zones has a powerful message in the meta, because
Slime.
We have Slime.
Hates it.
And then we're coming up on Saikano Set 2, which is also not going to prefer that mechanic.
AOT still hates it.
Yeah, I mean, you want to... Any deck that wants to generate value by changing zones, you can't. And so
the girl with the flute is here.
Yeah.
To say no.
And she and generating specific value by picking up cards from the waiting room is never overrated. There are very few combos in the game that are being run nowadays that are very specific salvage target pickups. They just don't print very many good versions of that that don't require reversing. And I think most players are kind of averse to reversing because they feel that their opponent kind of gets to drive the control of that mechanic. But when you can't move at all anywhere, there's gonna be opportunities to get reverses. And Miko is huge.
How big is Miko?
She just floats around at 8,000 power. And if you happen to be electing a student council, perhaps. And
it could be a good 9.5.
9.5. 9.5 is a big number. That is getting over most things. And there's level 2 things that 9.5 will get over.
Yeah.
And so the Miko combo is very reasonable for those decks. So I think that that's great. And I think that Kaguya is in a position where you have at least 4 decks to build that you can really go with. And so I highly encourage people, if you're a Kaguya fan, this is a great set. This will really diversify your Kaguya builds. And
there's a lot to work with. You can even go back to Chica.
Yeah.
Like, Chica will be better.
Yeah.
There's so many things.
Yeah, and like you'll be able to reach back to set 1, look at some stuff and say, well, do we want to play 12 choices now because we have 12 choice Chica? Is that a deck?
Is that a deck?
We got the old bar finisher that was on reverse, 2 instances of damage. How much better is that with Words of Parting? How much better is that with a good level 1 combo that works with it?
And of course, just a quick mention, we do have the 8 pants deck.
Yeah.
You can just jam a million events. And I hope it works out.
The 8 Pants deck is one of those things that people are going to experiment with, and it has had some decent results in Japan, but it is a Galaxy Brain deck. You need
to pay for everything.
You need to get everything into memory, and you need the game to go well. And if it doesn't, then things can get very sticky. But
just Galaxy Brain. You have Torch. Surely it will be fine.
Surely it will. But the other thing to remember is, in addition to all of this, you have so many tools for these events. I think every event has a bonder.
Every event has a bonder, and you have Miyuki, a 2-1 level 3 assist that can even ditch Climax to get a card, and gives you no color requirement for events, which makes it easier to play your yellow Words of Parting in your largely blue-red deck. There's a bond to everything. There are promos that will hopefully be coming out that will either let you swap events in memory with a different event that you might be running less of, or I think there's another one that just lets you get a different one to your hand.
There's a pants support as well.
There's a pants support as well.
So those are the promo the PR packs. So your local store, you know, if they're set up with Bushiroad, they should be able to get those packs. They're just like several other of the standard packs that have come out for sets recently. But yeah, some of those promos are really nice at setting up this sort of ambitious end game, and it remains to be seen whether anybody can build a version of this that's highly synergistic that just works. And so we'll see.
We will see.
We'll see how it goes for 8 Pants. That sounds like an opportunity for some ambitious deck building.
I gotta own it first. But, you know, speaking of all these decks and ambitious decks, we've got to find our third slot for our Springfest teams all around the world. Everybody needs to find their third because their 1 and 2 is Nino and Escanor. If you're trying to win, if you want to win, I wouldn't blame you if your first 2 are Nino and Escanor. But now, who's our third?
So, shout out to the guys at PGH. They're producing some fantastic content on the meta, what they think, you know, in terms of the best sets in the format, the best sets in the meta right now. And according to them, we have a tier all alone with just Nino and Escanor right now. And so it's difficult to say that those should not be 2 of your decks. But the list of stuff that can work is huge. It's huge.
Massive. You know, it's really it reminds me of like a fighting game.
Yeah.
Right, where you have, you know, there's this character. You know, even right now in Guilds of Gear Strat, Happy Chaos running over, you know, being great, and people are still, you know, they're playing Ramathal, Leo, Nai. There's even a few Soul gamers out there still, because you don't need to just, especially in this teams format, you don't need just the best 2 decks. We need the third, and it just needs to be able to win. And there's a lot of things that are able to win in the format right now.
And I think that one of the things that's nice about Best of 1 is you get these very sloppy games where a lot of things happen. And if you've never played in a Springfest before, you will get exposed to some decks you have no idea what they do. Because Springfest brings out the spiciness in Weiss Schwarz, because we can't just play the best decks. I mean, we could, but
where's the fun in that? You and the 2 homies, let's just get out there, bring our favorite decks. You know, you have every sort of person playing at Springfest.
Yeah, and for a lot of Weiss players, this is kind of their first tournament experience is in these teams formats. And as good as it is to play, you know, the 1v1, you know, you get the solo, the fighting game experience. The 3v3 is much more palatable when your deck just doesn't quite go correctly. And in a 1v1, that can be very frustrating depending on when it happens. Because it's going to happen every single tournament that you go to in any card game. There's going to be a time where your deck just isn't doing what it needs to do. It's bricking, not performing very well. Yeah. And
you've just eaten every point of damage possible. You know, you draw every single climax. Many of these things will happen. But in teams, you gotta hope that your other two homies...
Yeah, it can't be happening to your whole team simultaneously, right? That's not. That's not even possible, right?
Surely we can make it work.
So you hope to mitigate it with the concept of it's a best of 3, but the difference is you're putting your trust in your two close friends who are on your side, hoping that if your deck does bad, then they'll do good. If their deck does bad, you'll do good. And that's what's so great about the teams format, is that you get to mitigate some of the nastiness of best of 1.
So let's take a look at what PGH and many others would call just the A-tier deck lists. We can just like a real quick rundown.
Yeah.
We've got Hololive still existing, the top 8 machine that never wins. Slime, very consistent still, very nice. Psychano will be coming out eventually. Grisaya as well. Bang Dream 5th anniversary is coming out, and I've heard very promising things from our local Bang Dream enthusiasts that are definitely not proxying out some printer rares in order to play test a little bit. Machi is still here, obviously. AOT, surely Worlds was a fluke. Surely we can make it work. And just many others that are just still in the format, still able to win.
And I think that when you talk about Bang Dream, you have a deck that is going to be very annoying for some decks to deal with. They have the ability to prevent you from burning them. They have minus souls counter. They have very good tools that will push into their other builds that already exist. So their anniversary deck is very interesting, and we'll be able to do a deeper dive on it when it comes out, and we can talk about the specifics of what makes it interesting, because you have no clue exactly what they can mishmash so many combos together. But the anniversary set is very good, and I think that there's very good chance we'll be seeing it as soon as it becomes legal on teams.
And now there's some more decks that I believe you've added on here. Some dark horses.
Yeah.
A little X-Factor decks to throw into your third slot to really make it spicy.
So
you really get the mix going.
Yeah, and some of these are decks I've actually faced in Springfest and been absolutely floored by them when they show up, because you are not ready to deal with it. And it affects you mentally during the game, because you're kind of... If you've been playing competitive meta for months on end, then you're very comfortable with the types of play patterns that you see from those decks. If you've been playing Weiss Schwarz for the last year, you're pretty comfortable with the way that Nino behaves, and you know how your deck, what you need to get, what you don't need them to get, those type of things. You know, the things that make the plays kind of just happen. They're more automatic. But if your opponent is reaching deep into the bag and pulling out some spicy technology, that might make you very uncomfortable.
Perhaps a certain knight. He's green. Yeah.
Yeah.
He says, when you jam a climax, no.
Yeah, so there's a few different cards that if you really want to play a climax combo, these cards will really not let you.
Berkuli.
And so, yes, Berkuli is one of them. So he's a standard play for the Sword Art Alicization deck, because that deck needs the game to stay under control, because it doesn't have great finishing power. What it has is a great mid game and tons of resources. So they want the game to go as slowly as possible in the mid game, and they want to torture you with this card. So he's a 2/1 that has pay 2 and discard 2 whenever your opponent plays a climax. You take their guy and you just put him right in the waiting room. And if you are behind and you need that level 3 combo to bring it home, that card is a very upsetting card to see on the board, because you know that you can't bring it home. And so there's a couple different cards that restrict climaxes in a way that can be very annoying. I think Haruhi has 2 different cards that either will not let you play climaxes or will put your climaxes in the waiting room.
Shout out to our local doctor.
Yes, and so when you're facing decks like this that have highly disruptive game plans, it can rattle you. It's not just problematic for your deck or problematic for the game state. It's problematic for you because you have to think about more than just the normal plays. You have to think about, okay, what do I need to do in order to keep this game in the realm of victory? And in that same line, there was a period of time in the meta where cards were getting shuffled back in our deck with regularity.
Yeah.
And we've all been victimized by it at least once where
Lucia,
Yep.
Ruby.
Yep. Where we've used the standard good plays. You know, we're leaving 1 card left in the deck. We put our climax in the waiting room.
So
and
that
then
we can get shoveled back and lose the game instantly.
Yes, exactly. And so the problem with those type of decks is that they're skill checks, you know, for you, where you have the standard play, the good play, the play you automatically make 100% of the time because it's always the good play. Well, except for this one case.
Except for now.
Yes, where it is the play that just actually loses the game.
Right.
And so those type of decks, if you're facing them all the time, if they're in the meta, you get used to it, you get blown out by it once, and then for the next 25 games that you play against it, you don't have a problem because you're ready for it.
But if in your local meta, you haven't fought a Rushia, you haven't fought a Ruby in a little while, because, you know, it's been a while since it's come out, I would highly advise you refamiliarize yourself with our banned VTuber and our, our girls from Ruby, and just don't kill yourself in this way.
Yes, because there are very few plays in Weiss that will 100% lose the game, and this is sadly one of them, where if you misplay this, the game will death spiral very quickly because you will be taking huge amounts of guaranteed damage. So you have to remember, shuffle in is a real thing that can happen.
It can happen to you.
And the other thing that's really scary in a Springfest scenario are super high roll builds. And
we're not talking about the deck at the beginning of the episode. We're talking about stuff like dual laners.
Yes, TRV dual laners is the type of deck that is not comfortable for you to face.
If you are staring down the barrel of 20 stock, just chilling, and you don't have a stock swap, and they're just compressed, and they're just canceling, and they're about to just blow you out, it can be a tilter.
Yeah, and you know, if Mikey gets to go to McDonald's, then it's gonna be a bad time. So if you haven't faced some of these, and the other one is Love Live Sunshine. That's kind of the OG high roll, not fun.
Lion King as well.
Yes.
Scenario. Yeah.
Not fun to face type deck, where it comes out at level 2, starts incinerating you with huge amounts of damage, and before you know it, you're mid 3 and the game's lost. So if you've got a good local, if you've got competitive players in your meta, you know, get these decks put together, face them once or twice just to get familiar with how they feel, because someone is going to be piloting these decks guaranteed at a Springfest near you, and you don't want to be caught off guard by random dark horses because they're out there.
Now, it might be harder to find a Haruhi player.
Yes, I think you should just read those cards.
Yeah, just read those cards.
Yeah, just
understand that if you see Haruhi and you see blue, it's not a great look.
Yeah, and so if you see, you know, these certain characters, then you should definitely be on your guard. Don't let the game kind of get away from you. Play a little more aggressively than you would, because older decks do have they're old, and so they do have weaknesses.
They've got some stuff going, and you just gotta watch out for it.
Yeah,
you just gotta watch out for it. But now, and you know, what should you play? You know, any of these options are great. And to be really honest, it is Springfest. There's no worlds to qualify for, and if you're kind of going there with your homies, your pals, to just enjoy yourselves, break out your favorite decks, get your waifus out, see what you can steamroll. But if you're trying to win, and really win. We got Nino, we have Escanor, and we have take your pick.
Yes, a litany of very good decks. You know, I think ultimately, if I were giving advice, pick the deck you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because if you've been playing it a lot, you know how your deck plays. You don't have to think about your deck. You can focus all of your energy on what your opponent's doing and what the boards, things that are happening in the game. You want to remove as many mental pieces from the puzzle as possible. And so if you've played a deck 100 times, you could play it backwards and forwards against everything. Then that's the deck you should take. And if it's a little more dark horse,
that's fine.
That's fine.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Because in the end, any deck can win.
That's right. It's Weiss Schwarz, and you can win with nearly anything.
I 4-0'd a local with Batman Ninja in the year of our Lord 2020. And you know what? Sometimes you can just make it happen. But you gotta be comfortable.
Yeah. So, yeah, play what you like.
Play what you like. And that's gonna be it for the refresh point today. I hope you've taken something away. If you see a 2-soul choice Beaufort deck at Springfest, at Georgia, or Houston, it might just be me. It's probably just me. If my team here, if Steve has let me play it. If it's somebody else, then I'm very flattered that you've decided to take this very ambitious deck and pilot it yourself.
Yeah, I think. I just hope that. I hope the takeaway is good luck to everyone who is going to be trying very hard to win at Springfest. And we'll keep talking about Springfest in future episodes because we're going to get some meta shifts.
And we're going to be going to Springfest.
So we can tell you about our experience.
We can tell you about our experiences. We are going with another player from the DFW area to both Georgia and Houston. And we'll see how it all pans out. But in the meantime, thank you for listening. Take your refresh point and move along.
Yeah. Have a good one.